Hello and welcome to the CNN IBN special Thank You Sachin, as we look back at the career of arguably India's greatest ever batsman. And we are talking today to someone who's equally special, another living legend, the wall of Indian cricket, Rahul Dravid. Appreciate your joining us, Rahul.
Thanks, Rajdeep. Pleasure to be here.
In a sense, no one knows Sachin as much as you do, because the two of you spend so much time on the crease together. In fact, statistics show you've scored more century partnerships together in Test cricket than any other pair, 20. So you should know Sachin better than anyone else. Anything that stands out for you when you think about Sachin and batting particularly with Sachin through all those century partnerships?
I had in some ways, a great seat in the house. I mean, to be able to spend, and bat in those partnerships with Sachin for, as long as I did, and to have that opportunity to have those century run partnerships, some of them match defining ones, innings that probably changed the course of test matches or one-day games for that matter, was special, because you always knew he was a great player, but it was sometimes incredible to just watch him, bat with him and watch him at the other end, the way he was able to manipulate bowlers, the way he was able to, almost make bowlers bowl to him, manipulate fields to the way he wanted to. Just a skill, I think, an ability that stood out. You knew that you were in the presence of someone when he was on song and when he was playing well. Was someone truly special and had a gift which had been owned with a lot of hard work, he could sort of do things on a cricket field that others would find very difficult. He
had already achieved so much at such a young age, and then you in the same generation come share a dressing room. Were cricketers of your age group, similar age group, almost awestruck by Sachin Tendulkar?
I think from a personal experience, I think awestruck would be a wrong word. I would say I was inspired in some ways, because like you rightly said, Sachin was, even though he's my age or younger to me by a few months, he's actually 7 years my senior as an Indian cricketer, and in my second or third test match he was actually captain. He was my captain, so we grew up being inspired by this kid of our own age. I mean, you're normally inspired by people of a different generation. You're inspired by the Gavaskars, and you're inspired by the Vishwanaths, and that's all, that was always going to be there. No, but here we were as 17, 18-year-olds trying to get into under 19 teams in our state, or at least me trying to get into the Ranji Trophy side in Karnataka, and looking across and watching this Sachin Tendulkar play for India and play in Australia and score that 100. And he was 19 in Australia. I was struggling to get into my Ranji Trophy team when he was taking on, Whitney and McDermott and the likes of that in Perth. It was phenomenal. It was a huge inspiration.
You say inspiration because what stands out in a sense is that he was part of this golden age in a sense of Indian batting. I've likened it almost to the Bradman era, where in the 30s and 40s you have Sir Don and a number of great Australian batsmen come up in that era. And the same thing happens in the late 90s and the last 10 years. Yourself, Sehwag, Ganguly, Lakshman and Sachin. Was he the inspiration, or was he the pivot around whom this Indian batting in a sense evolved and made all of you raise your game in a sense?
Most definitely. I think he was the one that I think all of us, if you asked each one of us separately, would say that we in some ways were inspired by, looked up to, set our benchmarks against. I think not only us, I think everyone around the world soon started to set their benchmarks against what Sachin Tendulkar achieved. But to have a presence like him around the dressing room was, I think did a lot for a lot of us, because it allowed us in some ways also to play and build our games in the relative, away from the limelight, so to speak, because Sachin, I think, took a lot of the limelight, especially towards the sort of late 90s, when we were still growing. I think myself, Ganguly and Lakshman and Sehwag came in a little later, and I would definitely put him in that list. Especially the three of us growing up in the sort of late 90s, we could play and build our games in relative anonymity. And have and Sachin was sort of taking all the pressure and playing this cricket, and fortunately we were able to sort of raise our games and match our games and become a really strong batting lineup over sort of in that decade from 2001 onwards. But it definitely helped to have a senior player or a player of your own age like that performing like that, because then you had a marker to set your goals against.
I'm trying to locate him within the pantheon of Indian great batsmen, because in this for a long time we defined Indian batsmanship through a Gavaskar, just in terms of technical brilliance. Yes, you had other great players coming, the Vishwanaths and several others, but defensive technique and not losing a test match was the definition. Do you believe Sachin in a sense changed that he made attacking cricket, the ability to take the attack to the bowlers, a defining characteristic, and that's the big change that was brought in Indian cricket perhaps in the 90s. A new self-confidence in Indian cricket is what Sachin Tendulkar represented.
I think a new belief, and things keep improving, Rajdeep. I think it's very unfair to compare, generations and eras and look at averages and strike rates. I mean, Gavaskar grew up playing with completely different facilities, completely different set of circumstances. And you can never compare him to, he was an incredible great cricketer in his generation, inspired so many people. And Sachin's done the same. There's going to be a generation of cricketers who's going to come in and you might, I mean, it's going to be hard to believe, even though I'm saying it. Someone's going to make, when you look back at videotapes of the way Sachin batted, and you're going to see some young kid bat 4, 5, 6 years down. You look at Virat, some of the shots that he plays today, and you think, wow, this is incredible. This is even taking what Sachin did to another level. In some ways, not in terms of consistency and not in terms of performance, but in terms of sheer stroke making ability. And Sachin did that, I guess, with the Gavaskar thing. He built on those foundations that Gavaskar had built, and he took that ability of attacking, stroke-making cricket to a completely new level. So that will keep happening, and that's the advantages of having heroes that you can look up to, building on what they've done.
When did you first come across Sachin? Was it in junior cricket, senior cricket, and did you, when you first saw him, say, "My God, this guy is special"?
I first came across Sachin when I was playing an under-15 South Zone tournament in Cuttack. And I actually wasn't playing in the 11. I was picked for South Zone and we were playing against West Zone. I wasn't picked in the 11 and I was scoring. In those days, if you didn't play in the 11, they gave the score sheet to one of the substitutes to score. And I remember scoring to him, and he came out to bat for West Zone. And he had this Slazenger bat. He had a sort of Slazenger bat, and he came out to bat, and he was this kid who was your age, and he must have scored 60, 65 odd, and South Zone actually won that game. But I remember going back after that tournament to Cuttack and telling my friends in school, I've seen something really special. This kid I saw this boy bat in Bombay, and I thought I was scoring runs in school cricket in Bangalore, and I was like one of the better players in Karnataka, and I was 14. For that under 15 team, I was still young, so I still had a year of under 15 cricket, and I thought I was quite a hot shot. I thought I was quite good, and I came back and I said, wow, I have a long way to go. After I've seen this guy.
What stood out? Was it the power? What was it about him? Even as a young man, that stood out.
Just the way he constructed the innings, just the way the maturity with which he played, some of the shots that he played. I can still remember him cover driving or being able to play the pull shot. And one of our guys, not very quick in that level, you can imagine, pitch shot, and he just sort of pulled him for 6. And you saw some of those shots, and you said, "Wow, this guy's it's different the way these guys play." It's sort of like it was an inspiration from then. You went back and said, "Wow, I had to work a lot harder if I were to compete with these guys to be able to play for." And at that stage, your aim is to play under 17 India or under 19 India. It's not even thinking of India. And you're saying even to play under 19 India, this is the standard I need to set.
But you have a lot of child prodigies in school cricket. You get a lot of cricketers who play very well. Very few then go on to become anything remotely close to Sachin Tendulkar, and that's what's always stood out. Even when you saw him as a young man, yes, you knew he had talent, but the ability to take that talent to another level, that's something which perhaps is, really stands out.
It was like the perfect storm, so to speak. You have talent, you have that temperament, you have that desire, that hunger for runs, which is unmatched. You have that technique. You have that ability, that physical fitness. You have that ability to manage your life outside of this fame and all that it brings. It was a perfect storm. I mean, to do it for 24 years, you need that. He had a combination of everything. People have bits and pieces of it. A lot of child prodigies or very talented young kids who you see have the talent sometimes fall short on some of these other areas. Either they're lacking in temperament, or they just don't know how to handle the success and failure that comes with playing international cricket. They don't know how to handle the fame. Something can go wrong. There's so many elements to this thing of being able to construct a career for so long and as successfully as he did. And he almost had everything right. He was almost like born to be able to do all of these things perfectly.
As I said, there were these great cricketers. Between the 5 of you great batsmen, you've scored more than 50,000 test runs, which is quite remarkable in itself. But as we entered that late 90s period, there were tough times too. I mean, there was the match fixing scandal. Did that bring a lot of you closer together, or was it simply because you all came from the same age group and perhaps similar backgrounds that slowly this team was welded together? That Sachin in the early part of his career was very much the lone batsman, but over time, you all welded together as a team more than just the individual.
I think the desire to do well abroad and to actually become a team, I think, when we first started, we were quite young and we lost a few series badly. I remember the 99 series in Australia.
Catch, he's got him! Oh, good bowling! Very good bowling.
We not only lost 3-0, but we were particularly humiliated, and Sachin, as usual at that stage, was the lone sort of warrior. But I think there was this desire to actually be a part of a really good team, and I wouldn't say the match fixing thing brought us together. Maybe it did in a subconscious way. The fact that we suddenly found ourselves as all these young kids in leadership positions. Saurabh became captain and Sachin had just become captain. I was vice captain at relatively young ages, you would say. Maybe that sort of was just happened. But I think there was a sense amongst 5, 6, 7, 8 of us that we wanted to perform well abroad. We wanted to be respected as a team. We wanted that respect. I guess combined with the fact that our games were growing and getting better, so we had a little bit of that confidence that look, we can play at this level. As individuals, we all have succeeded at various stages, and if we all come together, who knows, we might be able to string together a sort of, and we've had these conversations. People have talked about, look, let's try and build something that we can leave a legacy for, and I think Sachin was really happy to be a part of that, and I haven't asked him this, and I'm not sure anyone has, but I think he would have really appreciated the fact that having seen some of us grow and actually be able to help him out. I mean, he would have been a lone warrior for a long period of that time towards the late, sort of after some of his seniors retired in the mid-90s. I think he would have appreciated the fact that we were able to raise the standard of our own games to be able to help him achieve all these things.
Because I've often wondered, his own best batting was perhaps in that late 90s period. The innings that he played in Chennai against Australia on a turning wicket, the innings he played in Sharjah, and his ability to move from one-day cricket to test cricket, something which even the great Gavaskar struggled for much of his career. Do you believe that late 90s was purely as a batsman his greatest period?
He did play some great innings, I think. I think statistically it probably will be, and then he had that really golden run sort of in 2007 to...
That's right, when he's sort of almost like a second revival.
Yeah, like a sort of second wind of Sachin. I think those were his two really great periods.
There's another 6. Oh, it's high! It's high! It's all the way! It's way over the top into the...
But I think he still played a lot of great innings even in 2000, but the fact that others around him started playing some really good innings as well, maybe you don't remember them as much as you do in the late 90s because he was probably doing a lot of it alone, so he's sort of stand up, he's the only guy doing it. In 2000, Ganguly was playing some great innings on and off, Lakshman played some great innings, I had some good innings, so he became a part of a whole in some ways towards that period, whereas in the early part of his career or that, he was probably standing out much more than he ever did.
Rahul, before I take a break, let me ask you where I started off. 3 and 4, batting at 3 and 4, all these century partnerships. You said you had the best position in the stadium, but in a sense, was there a lot of chat when you would have these partnerships, or were you two very different individuals doing your own thing on the cricket field?
I don't think we talk too much. I think both of us in our partnerships, we would have conversations, especially when if I was at 3 and Sachin had just come in. So for a little bit of time when we sort of first got together, there'd be a little bit more chat than ever, because I think he one of the great things of Sachin was this incredible ability to actually want to learn and want to. So even when he came in, and I would sometimes when I was young, I found that a little bit intimidating, because you had this guy with all this achievement and scored so many runs and was this great player. He'd come and say, what do you think, what's happening, and what is this bowler bowling, and like, should I be telling him, or what do I do? I mean, I'm like this, playing my 4th test match or 5th test match, what should I be telling him? He's such a great player. But there was a lot of conversation initially, but I think as the innings went on, we never really felt, unless something came up, that we needed to talk a lot.
Is there any one partnership that you recall? Anything that stands out for you of all these 20 century partnerships? Anyone that you always will recall with great fondness?
I think the century partnership in Chennai in the sort of first innings when we were we won the Test match in Calcutta in 2001 in the series, and Lakshman got that 281, and we went to.
And you got 180.
Yeah, and we went to Chennai, and it was a series on the line. And Australia put up a pretty decent score of 390, and we needed to set because we knew the fourth day was going to turn, and it was a turning track. It was not going to be easy chasing a lot of runs on the fourth innings, and we put up a partnership there. Sachin hadn't got 100 in that series so far, and there was a sense, and the way he was batting in those days, almost a sense of inevitability that we cannot go through a series without 100 from Sachin. It just doesn't happen, and we've come to the last Test match, and he was going to get 100, and I think that partnership and the way we sort of built it against a very good attack is something that I remember really fondly, because it set up a pretty decent score for us and we went on to win the series. So the Lakshman partnership is obviously a really celebrated one, the one that I've had with him, and it's obviously a very special one for me and for him and in the context of series. But I also remember this one very fondly because it happened straight after that, and I had to sort of almost even personally, fight from having had a great performance in that Test match to sort of maintain my standard and know that the series wasn't won until we put it another big score.
Rahul, let me take a break at this point. When we return, there's plenty more to talk with the one person who knows Sachin perhaps better than most on the field, the one and only Rahul Dravid. Welcome back to the CNN IBN special Thank You Sachin, where we are looking back at arguably the life and times of India's greatest ever batsman, Sachin Tendulkar, as he bids farewell to this game with someone who's known him for years, the one and only Rahul Dravid. Rahul, Sachin was once asked this in an interview, what is the shot of Rahul Dravid that you remember the best? And he said his forward defense. He said Ganguly's cover drive, Lakshman's shot of the hips, and Sehwag's square cut. What's the shot of Sachin that you remember the best? What's the one shot that, to your mind, defines Sachin Tendulkar, the batsman?
The one shot that I knew if he got, he was playing really well, was that flick off the stumps. He had an incredible ability. The ball was sort of straight in line with the stumps, an ability to hit the ball behind square leg at pace. It's an incredibly difficult shot to play if you're not well balanced. For anyone who's played the game, and if it's a shot you don't try because you're going to miss nearly every time.
Because a lot of Indian batsmen play that shot. The Azharuddins and all also used to play that shot off the legs.
Yeah, but it was more almost. I almost felt that a lot of Indian batsmen played it when the ball was sort of middle, sort of leg stumpish. But I think Sachin had the ability when he was playing well to almost hit it off, I'd say middle and off stump. And hit it at the pace that he did it past square leg. Obviously he had a great straight drive, and that's that's his other signature shot. But it was this shot that always told me that his balance was perfect. Because if you're not balanced really well, it's very hard to get that shot away at pace on the ground like he used to. And that was I think a great sense of his sort of balance and that he had.
You mentioned in the earlier segment about how winning abroad was critical. And a number of you got a lot of runs outside India. You got an incredible number of runs outside India in that period between 2003 and 6. Was that because of self-belief that came in, or was that because technically, like Sachin, you all were able to play front and back foot in a manner that perhaps was not the case years ago, and there was no fear of fast bowling? Because traditionally Indians were seen, till Gavaskar came along, to be slightly intimidated by quality fast bowling. Did you ever think that Sachin was ever intimidated by any bowler? Did any bowler, you think, get under Sachin's skin?
Firstly, I never like to form a judgment of anyone who didn't have a helmet. I think that's a completely different. You can't judge people who played without a helmet with guys who had one. You've got to take your hats off to some of these guys who played without a helmet, because I cannot imagine playing without one. And if they were intimidated by some fast bowling without a helmet, as sure as hell I would be.
My father said he went to in 62 to West Indies. He didn't even have a thigh pad. They put a towel.
Look, that's and they're playing fast bowling like Griffith and Hall.
Yeah.
That's not easy. So when people tell me, the guys of the earlier generation were a little intimidated against fast bowling, I think within myself I would be if I wouldn't have a helmet on my head. So I don't want to judge guys of that generation. I think they did a great job with the facilities and the equipment they had. But I think with Sachin, that was this thing that stood out, is that not only was he not intimidated by fast bowling, that he actually took fast bowling on. He had this incredible back foot game. He could pull, he could cut. If he so chose, he could dominate quality fast bowling.
Was he better against pace than spin? Which is very unique and rare for Indian batting. Sometimes you got the sense that, he was actually even more comfortable against pace than he was against spin.
It's very tough to say. I mean, there was not much of a marked difference. I think because he was so good against pace and we value playing well against fast bowling so much, being Indians, I think there's almost an expectation that Indian batsmen will play spin well. When here comes along a kid who can dominate fast bowling, you value that so much that you sort of forget that he could be a really good player of spin.
And the other quality was that, as you said, this adjustment from test to one day cricket, and I think opening the batting in the mid-90s suddenly transformed him as a one-day player. Do you think that was the turning point as a one-day player, that he was ideally suited to play the full 50 overs?
And he had the game to do it. I mean, he was technically proficient enough to be able to play fast bowling. He had the shots to capitalize on the field restrictions. So I think he enjoyed that side of it, that the field would be up, and he had that chance to sort of get off to a pretty good start. I think what would happen when he came in the middle order, a lot of times the field would already be set back, and it was not easy to start off in that stage in the kind of, I think, the pace that he would have enjoyed starting off with. When you play in the middle order, you come in and you've got to milk the singles, and you cannot really get off to a flying start. But suddenly this gave him this opportunity to be able to actually kickstart his innings at a much quicker pace because of the field restrictions. He was good enough to do it.
Locate him for us in the history of Indian cricket batting. Do you go along with those who will say unarguably India's greatest ever batsman? Is there any argument, or do you believe it's unfair to compare generations?
I think it's unfair to compare generations. Like I said, I mean, Sunil Gavaskar is a great hero of mine, and to see what Gavaskar did without a helmet against those kind of bowlers, for me is an incredible achievement. I think Sachin is incredible in his own right. He's the Gavaskar of this generation.
You're being typically modest because you've got to locate you within this Trimurti somewhere. Just the number of runs you've scored, in overseas victories. Did you ever feel under the shadow of Tendulkar? Did this entire generation feel under the shadow of Tendulkar, much as I said maybe that great generation of Australians did under the shadow of Bradman?
I'd like to believe that in some ways, the very fact that you're mentioning it and you're talking about some of us in that particular way means that we were able to, yes, there's no doubt that Sachin Tendulkar, the premier batsman of our generation, and the greatest batsman of our generation. But I think each of us in our own way was able to carve a niche and carve a place for ourselves in the history of Indian cricket.
Locate him for us within the world greats. I mean, this generation itself, you've had Callis, you've had Ponting, you've had Lara. I mean, these three names stand out globally in the last 20 years because it's been an era of batting. Locate him. Do you believe he's a notch above them, or again, it's tough to compare?
I think all four of them would be the sort of the greatest batsmen. I think you've got it spot on. You've picked probably the four greatest batsmen of my generation in different ways. Personally for me, Lara was probably the most exciting batsman to watch. Ponting was probably the most winningest batsman. I think he won more matches, played in probably the most successful teams of our generation. The most successful cricket, I'd say, in our generation, an incredibly great batsman. Callis was probably the greatest all-rounder of this generation, without a doubt. Phenomenal records, both batting, bowling, incredibly great player. And Sachin was probably in some ways the most consistent, the guy whom you'll set all your benchmarks against. I mean, 100, 200 test matches that he will probably play, most one-day runs, most test hundreds, the list is endless.
If you had to choose one batsman to bat for your life?
To bat for my life, I would probably choose Sachin. If I had a ticket and I had enough money just to watch one, I would choose Lara.
Because the 300 is one big gap. No triple century in Sachin's career, not even in first class cricket, which is astonishing because Sehwag has scored 2, and the two of you, arguably the most run-hungry batsman that Indian cricket has seen in the last 20 years, missed out there. Is that a gap in a sense that Tendulkar never went on to score that really humongous score?
I think I had to do the rate of scoring a little bit. I think in some ways, Tendulkar's sort of strike rate is probably slightly lower than say a Sehwag's or when Lara was at his pomp and going really well. So if you want to score 300s and that sort of thing, you got to sort of play at a much quicker strike rate because you got to be able to get that 300 in. You're going to get out at some stage and before you get out you got to score those runs, and which is what Sehwag does brilliantly, or did brilliantly in those 2 games that he did it. Sachin maybe was I don't think so much obsessed with the 300, whereas I think accumulating runs and scoring runs was a really important factor for him.
I think if you scored 100 hundreds, you scored enough.
Yeah, you scored a lot.
You scored a lot. Let's take a break in our final segment with Rahul Dravid. We're going to look at life beyond the field. Sachin Tendulkar and Rahul Dravid, the one thing that stands out in both of them, balance off the field. Final segment in a moment from now. Welcome back to the CNN IBN special. Thank you, Sachin. We are looking back at the life and times of Sachin Tendulkar with someone who's known him intimately as a cricketer and a person, Rahul Dravid. You know, Rahul, if there's one thing that, apart from all your great batting feats of both of you, that sort of brings you together, it's the balance off the field as well. Not just on the field, but off the field. Both of you have more or less stayed out of any controversy through a very long career. Do you believe that is a great achievement in a sense of Tendulkar also, that through all the pressure, he was able to keep it away and just focus on the game?
Well, it depends how you view it. I mean, lot of people have told me that staying off controversy is easy if you don't take a stand on a lot of things. So, no, I don't want to.
Are you saying that the two of you didn't take a stand?
No, I don't think so.
I
don't think so. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair. We've taken a stand where we've needed to take a stand and where we felt we've made a difference. I think there are a lot of areas without needing to shout and scream, I think we've changed a few things in Indian cricket. Not only both of us, I think with the help of others. If you just look at where the contract system is today, you look at the kind of money people have in sport. The board shares 26% of the revenue. I think a lot of that's happened, through the active participation of a lot of us. So we've not needed to shout or take somebody on to do it, but I think in a lot of ways we got the job done. But I think it's incredible is the way I think Sachin's managed, all that's happened around him and still been able to stay in a space that has made cricket his priority. I mean, with so much going on around him, so much happening, it would have been so easy somewhere along the line in these 24 years to slip up and say that, look, I can do other things and maybe it's, I should move on, this is too hard, or never. But, I think his love of the game stood out. He's come, he's been able to sort of maintain that balance.
Through 200 test matches.
Through 200 test matches, 24 years. I mean, so much of one-day cricket. And in India, I mean, it's never easy in India. Wherever he's gone, and it'll probably it'll not end even now. He's obviously going to be, people are going to want a piece of him, want a piece of time, want something off you. And that's never easy. It can get to you at some stage.
Did you ever see it getting to Sachin in all these years? Did it ever get to Sachin? Did you ever see him getting weighed in by the pressure of expectations?
Never really. I mean, that's the incredible thing. I've never seen him publicly get angry. I've never seen him get upset. And that's for me. I found him. We all have our moments. You can slip up sometimes, and you can get angry at something or gets angry at someone. But in a public situation, I've never seen him get upset. Never.
In the dressing room?
In the dressing room, sure, he might get upset at the odd decision, might not have gone his way, or a player might not have done something. Might have happened. Even those will be few and far between. But publicly, in an environment where he's had to deal with people or fans, or I've never seen him get upset, and that's incredible.
I'm wondering whether it's the middle class background, whether it's the Rahul Dravids and the Sachin Tendulkars, the background that you all came from. Were you all conscious about the fact that you all were cricketers first, servants of the game first, in a sense, even though you were masters of in the way you played it? Was that the game mattered more than anything else? The passion for the game was far more important than the celebrityhood that came along with it.
I think wanting to be the best you could be in the sport, and it comes through a lot in Sachin as well, and I think a lot that there's this. You almost feel that you've been given this gift and you've been given this talent, and you've got to get the best out of it. You've given this opportunity in this window of time in which you've got to get the best out of it, which is what Sachin did. You could see, irrespective of what might be happening around him, his contracts and the money he might be making, or people wanting to celebrate him or recognize his achievements and functions, and the cricket was always the primary It was never going to shift from his primary focus. It was always going to be about trying to be the best cricketer I can be.
Because the enthusiasm, even now when he has to take a third run, even for his striker, he's always willing to do that, or run at the boundary line. That childlike enthusiasm, even at the age of 40, never seems to have gone.
Never gone away. Never gone away.
It's almost like a child who's still enthused by every new day of playing the game.
Which is why he's been able to play for so long, because you only when you have that kind of enthusiasm and that hunger and you put cricket first above all else, are you going to be able to achieve what he's done.
Should he have retired after that 2011 World Cup win?
No, I don't think so, because it's very hard to look into a crystal ball and look at the future and predict what's going to happen for you. If Sachin Tendulkar could have looked into the future and seen what the next 2 years would have unfolded, for him and in some ways for Indian cricket, maybe he might have made a different decision. Who knows? But at that stage, when in 2011, I was just speaking of, it was almost he was going through a golden run, because it was that sort of second wind that we spoke about, and to ask someone to quit when he's having that kind of a performance behind him, is unrealistic.
Any off the field memory of Sachin through all the tours that he went through? Anything that stands out for you that shows that yes, this man is a cricketing god, but like every god, he's a bit human as well. Is there a human side to Sachin that you'd see from time to time?
You see that a lot of times with.
I know he loves to eat, and that's another great passion. He's a great foodie.
Yeah, and he had this knack and his ability of finding out which were the good restaurants nearby, especially abroad. I think that's a memory of me standing out, is that how relaxed and free he'd be when we toured abroad. When it was Australia or whether it was England, and it was very unlikely or very rare that you would see Sachin down at the lobby. The typical thing is when we are touring or we are with the team and you finish practice in the evening or you finish the game and you say, let's meet down at 7:30 for dinner, or let's meet down for 8 at dinner, and 5 guys might come, 6 guys might come, and you all go out. It'd be very rare to find Sachin out in India. He'd normally be room service, or in someone's room that he knew, or a teammate's room. But abroad, you'd see a different side of him. You'd see a side that you'd see Sachin down there sometimes. You'd see him going out. You'd see him going out and enjoying a glass of wine and with friends. And so I think that was nice memories. It was nice to see that there was that's what he really wanted to do, and he could sort of still do that.
Was he at one level always one of the boys who set such high expectations of himself, which is why perhaps as a captain he struggled, because he maybe expected the team and every member to do as well as he did? Or was he happy to be just one of the boys always?
Look,
I mean, you can't be Sachin Tendulkar and just one of the boys, but do you
I think deep down he was one of the boys. I think he carried himself as one of the boys in a lot of ways. He could have been a superstar. He could have carried himself as a superstar with every right, because he was one. But you always got the feeling that he was most comfortable when he was one of the boys and he was with the boys. I think that was where he was at his most comfortable. I think Sachin's probably been his most comfortable in that environment, in the cricketing environment. I think he's grown as a person, but I still deep down like to believe that, and like with a lot of us, I think with a lot of us, we are most comfortable in that secure environment that cricket creates.
Almost a bubble.
It's a bubble, and it's a brilliant environment, and that's something, when you retire and like me and you're out of the thing, it's one of the things that you do miss. You miss that bubble, you miss that security of that great environment.
Is that going to be tough for you, for him, life outside the bubble now, even no IPL possibly? I mean, is there going to be is life outside cricket going to be tough for someone like Sachin Tendulkar, who since the age of 10, 11 has been playing cricket?
Look, I think we've been very fortunate in a lot of ways that it will not be as tough for some of us as it could be for other people. I think so we've got, luckily, I think the game's given us so much financially that there are certain things that will be looked after. But yes, you never get that same bonding as you do in a team. You don't get that same camaraderie, whatever you may do.
That's outside. What you're going to miss.
You miss that. I think
when both you and Sachin are 80, that's about 40 years from now. When you sit back, I think. Is that what you will miss most, the camaraderie, the friendship, that bonding?
Yeah, I think.
And recall all those great wins abroad?
Yeah, you will miss that. You'll miss that focus, that goal, striving for something, being excellent at something and being able to strive to be even better at it. I mean, when you come out of that bubble, you're not really excellent at anything else. I mean, when I've come out of playing cricket and I look at other things that I try to do in life, I'm not very good at them. I'm not as good as I was a cricketer.
You're being modest again. Being modest again.
I'm being truthful. I'm being truthful. That's a reality. I mean, I'm not trying to be modest or falsely modest. It's the truth. Sachin's played at such a high level as a cricketer. I'd like to believe he can go on to do something outside of it at that high level, but it's not going to be easy. I mean, there's nothing else that he can do in his life that will give him the same standard that cricket gave him, and that's something you have to deal with. That it's not easy.
I've left this for the last. You know, there was that one incident. Your captain, you declared with Sachin at 194. There were lots of stories spun around it. You want to set the record straight. What was the reality of it? And did you all, at the end of the day, once the dust had settled, did everything settle down?
What I will say is, I mean, I think the dust has settled and we have sorted it out. I've had conversations with him regarding that. And what was said is obviously a very personal thing between the both of us, and we need to keep it that way. But I would say that definitely, there's been a huge amount of respect, even after that, and it's continued to be there. So, I don't think that incident has soured it. At least I'd like to believe not, and I think I would be right in saying that.
Which is why I'm coming to my final question. When you sit on that rocking chair at the age of 80 and you look back at this period, I presume that you will look back at it with a great sense of pride and mutual respect. I guess that's really what's been the defining sort of emotion of the last 15 years, that the enormous respect that both of you and the Indian team has got has largely been because of this self-belief that has been instilled into the Indian cricket team.
Yeah, I think the belief, the performances, the way we've carried ourselves, I think there'll be a lot of respect for each other for that. There's no doubt about that. I'd like to believe that, whatever may happen from now on till, whenever we do that, I would like to believe that we don't sit back and reminisce too much, because I think life moves on and, you have to move on. And I'm not someone who actually sits back and looks at things too much.
You might tell your grandchildren, Sachin Tendulkar, he and I have the maximum number of century partnerships in Tests.
I think my grandchildren will know who Sachin was, and they'll feel a little proud that I played a part with him. So that will always be my claim to fame.
You played much more than a part, Rahul. The two of you, in a sense, have been the mountain and the wall, as I call it. He's the mountain, you're the wall. Together you build the edifice of Indian cricket. So pleasure talking to you, Rahul Dravid. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rajdeep. Thank you.